right, welcome. Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead, do your whole little, you're the greatest podcaster in the world thing. Go.
Joe, Dave has much better production values than me, so I'm quite jealous of him. But I would like to start by saying welcome to our new show, Husky Hoops. And with me is always my co-host and cohort, the man himself, Coach Schuman. Coach,
Hello.
always good to see you. And I said that I would pay money to see you 3 times a day.
Wow.
And another legend joining us to talk some Husky hoops. We're happy to have him. We're happy to have him on board. And he is going to make all the difference in the world. We're all very familiar with him. A household name and the voice of the Huskies himself, Mr. Joe D'Ambrosio.
It's quite the intro, Cully. You're putting pressure on me.
I am putting pressure on you. I am. That's what I do. But you've earned it. You can handle it. You work well under pressure.
I can. I'm not worried about it.
You work well under pressure. And the good thing is there really isn't any pressure on this show.
No.
Because we just have fun and we like to entertain. And that's what we do best. What we do best.
That's what it's all about.
You got to have a little personality.
Yeah, just a little. Absolutely. No doubt about it. Yeah.
I had wanted to ask you, I know they played Rhode Island,
right?
And that was their exhibition game, so to speak. The first game is against Sacred Heart.
Right.
And they said the real test is going to be against Baylor in December. That's like the big matchup that they have.
Well, I think they'll have some tests in Hawaii.
In between. Oh, okay.
In Maui, you could play North Carolina in Maui. You could play Michigan State. Memphis isn't a rollover. I think
right.
Once you get past those 4 games, those 4 bye games, as they're called, in the beginning of the year, against Sacred Heart, against Texas A&M Commerce, against Lemoyne. Once you get past those and you go to Maui, where the field's always good, and then you come home and you get Baylor, you get Gonzaga at Madison Square Garden, you get Texas in Austin.
Wow.
That's pretty good. Not for the home fans. The home fans get hosed with non-conference games early in the year. But you have some good competition.
Yeah. I just see that. Yeah. Now, is it similar to football where Notre Dame will pay millions of dollars to have Northern Illinois come in and play them?
It's the exact same. I don't know if it's that much, Cult, but it's they have the bye games because you got to fill out your schedule, and for a school like Sacred Heart, it's a big payday. It helps support their athletic budget, and it's good exposure.
But like for us playing Baylor, does Baylor
that's pretty much.
Yeah, right. Baylor's 8th in the country, I think, this year, right?
Yeah, right. No, that's not. That's just a mutual. That's the Big East.
Okay,
so that was put together by the league.
Okay.
And then when you got a Power 4 or a Power 5 school, I guess it's Power 4 now. No, those are not bye games. Those are just scheduled.
I got you. Because I was just looking at it like the Texas game. I just wondered if they get paid for that, but you said they're in agreement with the Big 12 or I got you. And
Joe, I wonder what the after a couple of national championships in a row, and then UConn gets a number 3 ranking, right? Obviously, they did lose a couple of players, but gets a number 3 ranking. I'm curious what has Hurley addressed that at all? Is some? I mean, obviously, preseason rankings mean very, very little, especially in basketball.
Nothing. 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 What's meaningless in sports, boys? Here's a little lesson, all right? Mock drafts, preseason rankings, rankings of college kids, and 10-day weather forecasts.
Oh, 10-day weather. I think 10-day weather forecast might be the worst of all. It might actually be the worst of all. Now that I think about it, it's so funny because I just laugh that like when they do rankings that you wouldn't just initially just say, and I'd rather, by the way, not be ranked number one to start out because
Right.
The way kids are, you could use it as a little extra, motivation.
Well, and Dan's already done that. Dan made a big thing when the rankings came out of saying we should be number one because we're two-time defending national champs.
Right.
Correct.
It's pretty funny that they don't rank them number one after winning 2 in a row and retooling. And it looks like he's retooled, obviously, again.
Well, but people elsewhere, Dave, don't know how good any of these newcomers are.
That's what I was going to ask you. Yeah.
How good the freshmen are. They don't know how Ross is going to fit in. They don't know how the kid from St. Mary's is going to fit in.
The transfer.
I thought third, to be honest with you, was great. It shows you're respected and it gives the coach a little fire. Not that he needs any.
Right. But they have a rather unusual,
Steve, are you playing music?
What is that? Calypso music?
Sorry, my fault. I hit it on accident. Yeah, I have a music thing. They have a good amount of freshmen that have come in. I was looking at their freshman class. McNeely, Ahmad, Isaiah Abraham, and Hassan, I believe, is a graduate. And then they had the transfer from St. Mary's.
Yeah.
So it's a rather new group, would you say?
Well, and plus you're asking Hassan Diarra, who's been a bench guy, to be a lead guy. You're asking Samson Johnson, who didn't even play 2 years ago, and then last year served as Klingen's backup. You're asking him to become a full-time player. I mean, you're even asking Caravan to assume a leadership role, which you didn't have to do last year. So you've got guys, and you've got all those sophomores. Solo played early in the year when Castle was hurt, but then he never got off the bench at the end. Jaden Ross hardly ever played. Gare never played. Jalen Stewart got run late in the year. So you're asking everybody to pick up a different role. It's not the same team that won the national championship by a long stretch.
Well, it looked like Ball had a pretty good exhibition.
He was terrific.
Yeah,
he was terrific. I think he's going to be really, really good. And I think Stewart is going to be really, really good. I think those are two guys I would bet, if I was betting man now, I would bet those are two guys who are gonna stand up and play well.
How about the freshman McNeely?
He's
everybody
preseason of the year.
Freshman of the year, confident kid, can shoot it, has major skills, but it's going to take a little of adjustment. I mean, it took Steph Castle a little while to adjust, and I don't know. I mean, who knows if Liam's going to be as good as Steph was? We're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah.
Karabin, I don't know if I'm saying it correctly, but he was awesome last year. Like when he would come in, obviously, he's a guy that has a ton of experience. And you're right, like Diarra, like he was. What was Diarra? The sixth man, I guess we consider him, or the seventh. He came in. It was just like a pure scorer, off the bat, and was so dynamic. It is interesting. Are those guys like so? Karabin's obviously going to probably be a starter. Is Diarra going to be a starter?
Caravan. You gotta get the best
Caravan. We gotta get the name right.
It's Caravan.
Yeah. Is he gonna be? Is he gonna Is he
Start.
gonna take much more of a role? And is Diarra gonna take a starting role this year, or is he gonna still be?
Oh no. Diarra's taking Tristan Newton's spot. You know,
Okay.
Alex. This is the third year that Caraban's been a starter.
Yep.
Right.
His role has changed. His role has changed every year. If I were betting, if they're healthy, I would guess they would start against Sacred Heart. They would start Diarra, Ball, Mahaney, the kid from St. Mary's, Caraban, and Samson Johnson.
And Dave, I saw Diarra when I went to the game a couple weeks ago. I went to see Chris Thesitis, my friend, the equipment guy.
Don't be dropping his name.
Yeah, I'll get him in trouble. Exactly. He just I just went to say hi to him, and I happened to see Diarra, and it was kind of like looking up at a giraffe. He was just so tall. Like, I'm 6'5", and
no, Diarra's not tall.
You're thinking of Samson. You're thinking of
Samson. Samson. It was Samson then. Yes. I apologize. Yes, it was Samson. It was like looking up at it was giraffe. Yes. I was the kid who's 6'10". That's him. Samson. Yep.
His jumping ability, like when he came in off the bench. Now, he couldn't do all the different things around the rim. I mean, obviously he's a leaper, you know, and he was a lot slimmer, but I mean, his leaping ability was unbelievable last year. Like what are some of the things that like Hurley really is trying to work with him on? I'm assuming more of a shooting and stuff like that, but his jumping ability was, I mean, unbelievable around the rim.
I think the main thing they're trying to do with him is to get him to be a better defender.
Okay.
I think that's where you're going to miss Klingon in the middle. Was he was such a good defender. I think the other thing you got to work with Samson is he was prone to foul trouble last year. He doesn't have that, luxury now. We don't know how the kid from Michigan is going to fit in right away. He looked okay at the Rhode Island game. He's got experience at Michigan, so you'd think he should be okay. It's just a different dynamic. But I think at the offensive end, look, if you could throw Samson 3 or 4 alley-oops a game and get him 6 to 8 points that way, those are easy points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, sure. Reed came in and had 10 rebounds in that exhibition game. Shooting was okay, but I what I noticed last year is Samson's strength. He wasn't real strong and sturdy, so like he got backed up a little bit, and that's probably what caused him to get in foul trouble too.
Right.
Have you seen he's listed at 225, but at 6'10", I don't even know what that means. Because
it means he's thin.
Yeah,
that means he's very thin, right? So at 6'10", to be like more built, he probably have to be about 255, 260.
He's lean. Yeah,
I would say too. It all depends where he puts the weight. I mean, he's never going to be. You can be strong without being beefy. If your upper body strength is built up, that's where it counts. You don't want somebody who's a load out there. I think he'll be fine.
Right.
But I'm just saying, you went from Sonogo and Klingon to Klingon and Johnson to Johnson and Reed. I think that's a little bit of a step back, but it doesn't mean they won't be good. It might just take a little time.
Joe. I just wanted to ask the freshman from Virginia, Isaiah Abraham.
Right.
Do you see him getting significant minutes this year and contributing?
Well, they list him as a forward, Steve.
Yeah.
And when you look it up front, you've got Caraban, you've got they're looking at the kid, the freshman kid, McNeely as a forward. You've got Jalen Stewart, you've got Jaden Ross. I think at the beginning it's going to be time for Abraham to fit in. I mean, you saw in the exhibition game, he didn't come in till midway through the second half. So, these coaches are funny. They all talk about all the depth they have, and then they end up playing 8 or 9 guys.
Right. Well, the one spot where I'm not 100% sure that they who is going to fill that role is that role that Spencer filled. You know what I mean? Like the slashing role, to be able to shoot from the outside.
Oh, that's Mahaney. They think Mahaney will be their hope.
Aiden, yeah.
Mahaney is the second coming of Spencer.
Got it. Okay. And I tell you, it was amazing. I thought he was the Spencer was like the X factor for them, because you had Newton that could such an exceptional scorer, and you do anything over there, Spencer really just, he just knocked down big shot after big shot. And obviously Klingon's probably the hardest one to replace, just because not only was he a great center, but his defensive playing he was so physical. Like he was just like, what he did against the Purdue center was just, listen, they traded points. It wasn't like he completely stopped them, but he managed them. And
he was a beast.
Purdue center. And that leads to a blowout, because they became very one-dimensional, Purdue, right? So it was exceptional what he was able to do. Like, obviously he scored incredibly well, but the defense, to me, his ability to get off the ground quick and block those shots and time it where he didn't foul guys, is just exceptional. But it is interesting, like the pieces that UConn has this year. If it gels, it looks like it's another chance to.
I think, put it this way, I think they have a chance to win again. It's not a lock, but I think they have a chance. They have a chance to be among the 5-10 best teams in the country. And then you get to the Elite Eight. It all depends on matchup.
Right. Do you think that they will roll through the Big East and have any trouble in the Big East winning the conference at all?
Yeah, I do.
You do?
I think
okay.
Will be good again. I think St. John's in year 2 under Patino will be really good.
That's true. Yeah.
I think Providence will be good. I think Villanova will be better. Xavier always plays them tough. Holloway's a really good coach at Seton Hall. Yeah, I don't think the Big East is a cakewalk. But I do think, as the coaches voted in the meaningless preseason poll, that they should be the favorites.
Yeah.
The team that I thought that was like emerged last year and I saw they were rated at obviously 2 or something like that, was Alabama. I couldn't believe how good they have gotten and the kind of guys they had, and not just their scoring ability, but the athletes they had. Is Alabama and Kansas? Who do you see as like the main threats to UConn to repeat
nationally? Yeah.
I think it's too early to tell. I think we got to wait and see how teams make out. Now, look, Duke with Cooper Flagg is going to be really good.
That's right.
Okay, so that's a threat right there. But Alabama, as you mentioned, has great athleticism. Kansas was a little dysfunctional last year. You'd have to think they'll be better. Kelvin Sampson's done a great job at Houston. Texas is going to be really good. Gonzaga is always up there. Last year was exceptional the way UConn blew through teams in the NCAA tournament. You can't expect that to happen again. You'd have to think you're going to get a little more stress than 6 20-point wins.
No, exactly.
Is fan base realistic, or do they just assume they're winning it again?
I think they know it'll take hard work, but I think that's been the whole mantra. Ever since they won their second, they've talked about winning 3.
Joe, I always was curious. Do you think Hurley was ever close to accepting the Lakers job?
I don't know. I don't I think he used it as a bargaining chip.
Yeah.
Which
Leverage.
is fine, which is the way business works.
Yeah.
Because look, let's be honest. He looked at the Lakers situation, and if you're the coach of the Lakers and JJ Redick is in the same boat, you're not the most important person on the team. Most important person on the team is LeBron James, by virtue of him bringing his kid in.
And then his second is the son. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So,
exactly.
I think Danny read the tea leaves and knew what it was going on there. I think he played it perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a way that I can get leverage on Dave and play it perfectly? Is there anything I can do? No.
You're not LeBron.
No. I one of the I thought was, did you catch the interview with his wife that they did? I thought that was one of the greatest things when they were interviewing him. What it's like, and they were interviewing his wife. It's so interesting how that dynamic is between their relationship, where she really could give a crap about what he does. Obviously, she wants him to win; she's rooting for him. But as far as the impact in their daily relationship, she's more worried about what's going on around the house. I thought that was such a great interview. It shows the insight of how he really thinks. First of all, like he's driven in ways, and just knowing his story, being from New Jersey, and his father's
the basketball family.
His father's the greatest high school basketball coach in the history of high school basketball, in my opinion.
I would put Morgan Wooten from DeMatha up there too.
Oh yeah, you're right. He's unbelievable too. But I mean, the number of national championships he won and players he's put out, and if you've ever seen what St. Anthony looks like, it's no longer even a school anymore.
Right.
It isn't.
Yeah, they always
closed.
He always raised money to keep things going for many, many years. His money used to fund most of their athletics, not just basketball. Used to fund like their football program. Then eventually that went away. They didn't have enough money for that. Then eventually the whole school went away. But yeah, I mean the greatest basketball program in the history of New Jersey no longer is a school anymore. So that's exactly the case. But just the history of him and what he went through, when he was at Seton Hall, and I'm assuming the pressure. I don't know if it's the pressure that he felt from his father, but more the pressure that he felt being a Hurley to be successful with his brother, as the success that his brother had at Duke, and then to try to replicate that at Seton Hall, all that pressure and that depression, and how he's now channeled that in such a positive way. But what I think is so amazing is the obsessiveness still goes in one direction or the other, and it works obviously to UConn's favor because it's all into from a basketball standpoint. But his rise from high school to lower levels to college, is his groundingness, is that one of the things that really helps him connect with the players? Is that some of the things that you've really seen about him that's made him special as a coach?
I think so. I think that's an important part of it. I think the players can relate to him. They know he didn't have an easy path to get where he is. They know that he had to work his ass off to get there. And I think that makes an impression on players. And I also think, look, they've seen, kids who are recruited by UConn now. I mean, you look at all the kids he's gotten drafted now. A lot of them have been second-round picks. And, despite what you might see on social media, second-round picks don't play a lot in the NBA. No. So there's people who are pining for Andre Jackson. Doc Rivers doesn't play young kids, and Dre was a second-round pick. Everybody says, well, Sanogo should play more for the Bull. Well, Sanogo wasn't even drafted, right? He's worked to get where he is. Tristan Newton and Cam Spencer, they were second-round picks. I mean, the guys who have been first-round picks, Hawkins is off to a good start. Castle's off to a good start. Klingen's off to a good start. But still, the bottom line is, if you get drafted, even if you're a second-round pick, you can go overseas and make $1 gajillion.
Dave, would you equate, or Joe, would you equate a second round pick in basketball to like a fifth or sixth round pick in football?
No,
No. Okay.
because
Lower?
fifth and sixth round picks have a good chance of playing. Second round picks,
So it's
you're not
seventh
getting
round.
off the bench.
I got you. So it's more of a seventh round undrafted free agent if you're a
Right,
second round pick
exactly.
in basketball.
Exactly.
Wow. I did not know that. Now, this is something that Dave had mentioned. He felt that some of the NIL money that's coming into the SEC and the SEC schools, Alabama especially being one of them, has helped the basketball program. They get so much NIL money, for football that it has trickled down and affected the other sports, and they're having success in basketball because of that revenue. Do you see that playing a factor?
Well, I think they're separate, to be honest with you. I don't think a nickel that's ticketed for the football program
Gets sent.
goes to the basketball program. I think that's all on its own. And look, the NIL thing is going to become a bigger issue the longer we go along. Schools that have a rich NIL program, that have supporters who can pour money into their school, they're gonna prosper. There's a lot of teams, there's a lot of schools in the Big East, guys, that aren't going to be able to sustain this.
Not even come close.
NIL.
Yeah, like can Creighton raise money?
It's critical. No, the three schools in the Big East are UConn, Creighton, and Villanova.
Okay.
And St. John's, maybe, but there's not a boatload of money, as far as I know, going into Providence.
That's what I was going to say.
Certainly DePaul.
No.
I heard St. John's had pretty good money. I heard St. John's had some good money raised. I don't know if that's true or not, but
I would think Nova would raise money.
That's what I said. Yeah, Nova was one of them.
Oh, you did? Okay.
UConn, Creighton, Nova, and I said St. John's supposedly also, and that's right. As long as Patino's there.
Right.
Once Patino leaves.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
That's going to dry up. But that's why it's important for UConn. As great as the Big East has been, UConn's got to go somewhere else where the programs are going to be strong because they have all this money coming in.
Right.
And my main point on the NIL was not that they take football money and give it to basketball, but the people that they go and get the money from, because they're raising so much money, will contribute to both programs.
Absolutely.
I think that's a game changer.
Absolutely.
Because you can go back to a donor, because you're in such a big conference. A person who's giving to this, or a large donor that's giving to this, is probably more likely to give to basketball. It may not be the same capacity, but give to basketball because the conference that they're in, the ability to continue to push forward from a resource standpoint is obviously going to be there because football is bringing in so much money as far as within to university athletically, right? So they know that those things are going to be there. So when you go back and get a donor that gives the football X amount of money, and you go back and ask him to give to basketball as well, they know that the resources are available. And I think you're right that that's one of the things down the line that could be limiting for UConn from a basketball standpoint is you don't have that excessive amount of revenue coming in from football from a large conference that that you're going to continue to sustain everything you can within the whole entire, athletic department. And a lot of these places, like in the SEC, I mean, they leverage it for baseball. LSU leveraged the NIL money is huge that they've raised for baseball in LSU, right? So, so some of these other programs that they have that might be big as well within a university benefits from the fact that they know that they're going to have the resources university-wise to build out the entire athletic program, because you got a boatload coming from football no matter what, right, from these conferences. Is that always going to be like, could the Big East go away? It won't go away. Let me rephrase that. Is it something that could become less of a conference down the line because of the emergence of these group of four conferences?
Oh, sure. If the group of four which is what, 80 schools now or something, decided they wanted to do their own national basketball championship.
Oh yeah.
Who could stop them?
The networks would jump on that, and then then you'd have a watered down NCAA field. I mean, that might not be coming in the next 3 years, or it might. I think that's a definite concern.
And now the players, I mean, I know it's going to be passed eventually. They're going to be able to get a portion of the television revenue. So they're actually going to be paid by the university for the first time ever off of the TV revenue.
I don't think that's going to be a lot of money.
It won't be for basketball. It's not like football. I know that.
I don't even think it's going to be a lot for football. Because,
really?
Well, here's why. Do you dole it out equitably? Does all 100 kids on the football team get the same amount of money? You can't. No. You have to. You can't give. You can't give your star running back $10,000 and your third string running back $250, and Title IX comes involved.
Yeah, 100%. That's the issue that's going to play a part in it when they start the revenue.
Right. You can't
How are they going to do it?
You can't just give it to the guys. It's not going to work that way.
So, like with football, they're capping it at $20 million per team or per school for the television revenue that has to be split equitably between the men's and women's sports teams. How do you see that shaking out?
Well, I mean, I think depending on what the stronger women's team, what the stronger sports are at each individual school.
Yeah.
UConn, it would go to there'd be a lot that would go to the women's basketball, but you'd have some going to soccer, some going to volleyball, some going to field hockey and lacrosse and softball. You'd have to, I think we're still in uncharted waters as far as this is concerned. And you've got to wait and see how it's going to turn out. And I'm still not convinced that some school isn't going to screw this up for everybody.
Well, a couple already have. Well, I mean, you look at UNLV, losing the quarterback Solka because they promised him.
But that's not what I mean, Steve. What I mean is some school's going to break the rules.
Oh, okay.
And then it's going to go to hell in a handbasket.
I don't know how you could break the rules. I don't think there are.
Yeah, are there rules? There are.
Yeah, there's rules. There's rules. You gotta, you gotta fly right. But you always know there's a school or two that thinks they can circumvent the law.
Well, tampering is a big issue in the transfer portal.
Well, yeah, because they all go through third party.
And then what they're promising them NIL wise, I wonder how. I don't know how they police that, the tampering aspect of it, because the player is not going to give anybody up, and the coach is not going to give anybody up, right? So, I mean,
no, it's all through the third. They get a third party that the other school will reach out to, like the high school coach, or now these kids have agents, so they could reach out to the agent, say, "Hey, we got an opportunity for you to come to Syracuse, and we can provide you this." And I think that's how it starts.
I wonder, Joe, if the conferences, because I don't think the NCAA will take it on yet, but I wonder if the conferences will eventually mandate certain requirements for agents working with the players within their conference, or even I don't know, maybe even universities. Well, I don't know if they want to take that on either, but maybe the conferences. I mean, how do you see that working? Because that's like a crazy Wild West from an NIL standpoint, and with brokering, transferring. Like, I could tell you that kids that I coached that played for me, either on my club or in high school, when they're at a school, they call me up as soon as their coach gets fired. They're like, what, they know they got to go. They're going to go. They got to go in the transfer portal, but they're calling you up to essentially broker their situation before it comes up. I mean, and a lot of them, I'm sure they all do this in some capacity because they either get nervous if a coach gets fired or they're, they want to leave for whatever reason, multitude of 9,000 reasons, right?
Right.
Is there something that's going to be done from that standpoint? Because usually the next happen, this is always going to happen. They called their high school coach, they called their AAU coach. The guy doesn't have time to really do it, right? So that now they're going to go searching for some guy or get recommended to some guy who's either actually an agent or a pseudo agent. I always thought that because I was an NFL agent for 6 years, like it would be like a no-brainer on the NFL side, and I don't know how the NBA works, to just say, okay, all the people that are certified NFL agents, those people are grandfathered in to be agents to represent for NAL. And I'm sure basketball, you probably could, I don't know exactly how basketball works, but I'm sure there's some similarity where they have agents that have to go through their CBA and be able to pass in order to represent players. Is that something that you think needs to happen or could happen?
I think there's got to be legislation.
Yeah.
I think before too long we'll see that, but I think there's got to be some sort of making sure that these agents are above board and not, doing things that are going to compromise their clients and eventually the schools.
Yeah, that's the one thing Dave and I had talked about with Mike Burton and Bleeding Blue. He does things, I think, the right way. He involves the parents. He makes sure the parents have representation. They go over the contract together, and it's signed knowing the expectations, and they've never missed a payment for anyone. Everything's, above board. They know what they're getting into, and they have legal representation. It's not just like your high school coach representing you or your neighbor. They get them actual attorneys and make sure that they're protected.
But they're still going to want to be represented. So like down the line, they're still going to have to, because obviously anytime you're getting money from X group, you're going to want to have someone that, even though obviously we know Mike, he's a great guy and we know he's going to do the right thing, but they're going to always want to have somebody. And I'm curious too, like does Bleeding Blue do basketball also, or is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, they do. You can donate to any sport you want.
Any sport you want.
But Mike had just gotten involved with football, I think, 2 years ago. He wasn't part of it.
Oh, he wasn't. He was doing just basketball.
Mike wasn't part of anything.
Oh, he wasn't. He created Bleeding Blue from scratch, right?
No, but Bleeding Blue was already created, but nobody was really helping with football besides the D'Amelio guy. And then they asked Mike to help out.
D'Amelio has his own fund, right? So he has a separate fund too, right?
That's the other thing, Joe, that I think is crazy. That the NIL collectives, there could be 2 or 3 for each sport. They don't necessarily work together.
Nope, not at all.
Which I can't believe. Like Mike goes out of his way to work with Mora and Benedict and make sure that they're all on the same page. Whereas anyone else who has a collective can come in and say, I'm going to pay this kid $200,000 and you can't stop me.
Right.
And that's the only thing I don't understand is why wouldn't the collectives work together? Because if they work together, wouldn't that ultimately be what's best to help that team succeed?
Well, you would think so, but the bottom line is, I mean, let's be honest. What does Mike Burton get out of giving kids money to play sports at UConn?
Nothing. It drives him nuts. He pulls his hair out.
Right. Don't you think it's something? Don't you think
it's a pride thing for him?
Don't you think at some point somebody's going to say, "What am I doing here?"
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. I mean, Mike's biggest thing was he did not want to see what he built, what I was part of, all that end up being for nothing because we were losing, we were not raising NIL money, and he got involved because of that. He wanted our legacy to be preserved. and he wanted to see football get back to where it used to be. Because I think, we had a run from maybe 05 to 010 to 2010 where we were as good, if not better, than some of the basketball teams. Would you agree with that?
No,
I don't think I would agree with that either.
No, I wouldn't.
Jody always puts me in my place.
No, that's a little bit of
championships during that time.
That's a little bit of a
stretch. 04 they did.
That's a little bit of a stretch.
But like from 05 to 2010, that was probably our best time for football.
Most
successful, I would say.
Let's do that. 03 went 9-3.
Correct.
04 went to the Motor City Bowl.
8-4.
Bowl game. Yeah. 05 and 06 didn't do much.
05 and 06 were not as good. Correct.
Right. 07, then 7 through 10 went through bowl games.
07, won part of the Big East Championship.
Right, Big
2010.
East Coast champion.
Yeah.
Went to,
I see what you're saying.
That was the Charlotte Bowl.
The Meineke Car Care Bowl.
Right. Then 08 was
Papa John's Bowl.
National Bowl.
The Papa John's
Bowl. I think was the Papa John's or vice versa. No, 08 was Papa John's.
Right.
09 was International. 10
right.
was Fiesta.
Yeah.
So
if you want to look at what basketball
I went to that.
Did during that time, you go 2000.
Well, I know. I remember 06 they should have won the national championship. They had the most talented team in 06.
Championship in 04, right?
04 they did, but the 06 team was so talented they should have won the national championship.
They were 17.
And they lost to George Mason before going to the Final Four. That's when they had Rudy Gay. I thought they had more talent than anyone.
Well, and that was the problem. Everybody was more concerned about where they were going to be drafted than beating George Mason.
Yes. But I don't recall 07 and 08 if they
07 didn't make the NCAAs.
Yeah.
08 Dyson got hurt. They got beat in the first round in Tampa. 09 they went to the Final Four. So
that's right. Okay.
They lost to Draymond Green and Michigan State out in Detroit.
Right.
And then what was Kemba Walker, 2011?
2011. Yeah.
That was a great team.
Well, he was 09. He was a freshman in 09.
09.
And then he was obviously the star in 2011.
Yeah.
Right. And then 2014 was the last one with Ollie before this run.
Right.
When Hurley was initially hired, did you think that he was the right guy for the job? Did you think that he was a good hire at the time?
I was going through my own stuff at the time. I wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't that concerned, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I got you.
But I will say this: I did think he was. They didn't seem like there was anybody else who they were targeting. So he was the number one guy right from the start.
I had no idea.
Where was he at the time?
Rhode Island.
Yeah, he was at Rhode Island. Wow. So yeah, I'm looking. I mean, absolutely right with the schedule. Xavier, Butler, DePaul. I mean, they should. Is Georgetown good this year?
Good question.
Yeah.
Good question. I would think in year 2 under Ed Cooley, they'd be better.
Right. But looking at this schedule, yeah, I mean, I think they should do fairly well in the Big East. And then,
Creighton has a great coach. Their coach is he seems to reload and
and the kid in the middle's back for his 11th year. I mean, Kalkbrenner's been there forever.
And that makes a huge difference. Having that continuity.
Of course it does.
But they lost. Who did Creighton lose? Connect. They lost
Baylor Shireman.
Shire, yeah, that's it. Yeah. Shireman, yeah.
Right.
So, Joe, you had mentioned the conferences. Were you saying that UConn was ranked lower among all the conferences?
No, I don't understand.
Oh, I thought you'd said like if you were ranking the conferences, SEC, Big Ten, ACC, Big East,
You're hearing
UConn.
things in your ears.
Okay, you didn't say that. Okay,
No.
so the Big East is up there as far as a basketball
Oh
conference.
yeah, of course. Yep.
Okay, with anyone else.
Outside of the group of four, it has to be.
Yeah.
I mean, now is Marquette looks to be shot?
You know what? I haven't looked. I have no idea when anybody has coming back.
Okay.
I'll worry about that in December.
Yeah.
Conference play starts.
Because you're absolutely right. The preseason stuff is meaningless.
I wouldn't say it's meaningless, but it's certainly not as important as the conference play.
No, not at all. I was just looking to see if they're big non-conference games, and I see what you're talking about in Hawaii.
They've got at least 4.
Yeah.
In Baylor, Texas, Gonzaga, and then one of the games,
right,
or more in Maui.
Yes, and Maui that you mentioned that's Colorado, Michigan State, both there, and then Memphis is no cakewalk, obviously.
Right, and then you could play North Carolina in the third game on the other side of the bracket. So,
yeah.
If and no one ever wants to talk about this, but if Hurley ever did leave, would UConn, you think, go outside, or does he have anybody internally that's one of his assistants that he's grooming, to really become an elite coach?
Well, I think it's not going to be Tommy Moore.
No, because he's always been there.
He's kind of the general manager of the program now. I would think either Luke or Kamani would do a terrific job, but you don't know what the mindset is at the top. We're UConn, we can bring in a big name.
Right. Whereas on the women's side, if Gino ever stepped down, would I can't believe her name slipped my mind.
Morgan, I think, will get it. Morgan Valley.
No.
Wouldn't
No.
his longtime assistant get it?
No, Chris Daly wouldn't want it.
Daly wouldn't take it.
Okay.
No, you've got 2 former players who are doing great things. Carla Berube at Princeton, Shea Ralph at Vanderbilt.
Okay.
Shea at Vanderbilt. Okay.
Well, I know Shea was supposed to be the heir apparent, and then she left for Vanderbilt. But you still think that she would come back? Obviously,
and let me just say this: I love Morgan Valley. But she didn't have a lot of success at Hartford. It would be hard to justify putting her in charge at UConn.
No, I was going off of what Maria thinks. That's all. That's Maria's favorite.
What was her take on it?
Maria thinks that Morgan will take over. Oh, Maria thought that Morgan would be the one to take over if when Gino steps down.
I respectfully disagree.
I have no problem with that. I disagree too.
I thought at one time Rosati was climbing in that direction, but
I thought so too. And she went to be a general manager.
She's president of the Connecticut Sun.
Oh, president. Okay.
Right. So she's not. She's somewhat involved in the player acquisitions, but not really.
Right.
And you don't. She wouldn't leave that to come back and take the UConn job.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I don't think so.
I think once you get pushed up to the top offices, I think it might just be, even though you're still working hard, you're not in that same grind that you are as you're coaching. It's a different type of grind.
Oh my God, yes.
That's hard to mentally, I think. Just although UConn women's basketball would obviously be the one tempting thing that would be there for that, but that's a totally different grind. That's like
Yeah.
And Joe, just off topic, if the women can stay healthy, do you think they will win for sure this year?
Well, I wouldn't say for sure.
I know South Carolina is.
I think they. Well, USC with Juju Watkins is going to be really good. You know, there's a lot more competition on the women's side than there was 15 years ago. But if Paige and AZ are healthy, if they can get something out of one of the big kids up front, if Sarah Strong's as good as everybody says they are, as everybody said she is, they can definitely win it again.
Yeah. It's just hopefully they stay healthy. And just your comments on football. Are you confident that we could end up with a 7, possibly 8 win season? Do you think 7?
Well, we're at 5 now, right?
Yeah, I mean we're 5-1 or 5-2. I'm sorry,
3.
5-3.
We're 5-3. 5-3. Yeah, we got Georgia State, Syracuse, and UMass and UAB.
And UAB, who stinks.
Yeah, who stinks.
So, I mean, if you don't get to 7 wins, that's disappointing. I mean, Syracuse isn't great, but
no, they look bad.
But UConn hasn't shown they can beat a Power 4 team. The only 3 teams, the only 3 good teams that they've played, they've lost to.
Yeah, Duke,
right?
Wake,
I mean, let's
Duke,
be honest.
Wake, Maryland.
They beat Merrimack. They beat Merrimack of the North. They beat Merrimack of the South. You know, they were life and death with Rice, who was playing a second-string quarterback.
Who was a baseball player.
Right, exactly. Ben Rice.
He was a baseball player.
No, but I mean, give them credit. They're a lot better than they were last year. The money that they spent in the portal was money well spent. Although I'm not a fan of the quarterback. I don't think
you don't like Evers. I know that. I have watched him now. I know he hasn't played enough, but 9 of 24 for 112 yards or 114 yards is not going to get it done. But I also I put it more on the offensive coordinator. I don't think they do enough to put him in the position to have success. I think they ask him to do things that he's not great at doing. And my friend Joe Villapiano,
like throwing the ball.
Well,
sorry, Steve. Joe, it's so well timed. I was thinking the same
I'm not as witty as Joe. I'm sorry. I'm not as witty as Joe. I was going to say Joe Villapiano had said his timing is terrible with like some of the 3-step stuff, and his footwork is very poor, and that's what's keeping him back.
Didn't they know that when they recruited him?
Well, this is his third time transferring.
Right. So. And don't get me started on kids transferring to 3 or 4.
I know that's you said that.
I have a lot of. We don't have enough time.
That's a red flag.
A lot of thoughts on that.
No, that is a red flag. That is a red flag for sure. But he did bring Skylar Bell, I believe, with him. So
he's brought a lot. They brought in good wide receivers.
I mean, Evers brought him.
They replenished the defense.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, Coach Moore's done a pretty good job of filling the gap. Now, here's another thing. All right, and this is not meant to denigrate anybody. You got 106 people listed on the football coaching staff. When you were there were maybe 15. There was no general manager. Right. There was no director of player development. Yeah. None of that.
The analysts,
right.
Right.
All the analysts. I thought you've got to do that. You've got to do that because that's the way the sport is now.
They made the rule now that they can have as many people as they want, and they're staffed even more than the NFL is pretty much.
You can put them 1-to-1 if you want. If you want to have one coach for every player,
that's pretty much what it's turned into. There's like a centers and guards coach. There's a tackles coach, tight ends coach, quarterbacks coach. It's crazy.
There's a senior There's senior defensive analysts for defensive back, senior offensive analysts for quarterbacks. Then there's analyst offensive line, analyst defensive line, analyst special teams. Then there's a defensive grad assistant for linebackers, defensive grad assistant for DBs, offensive grad assistant for offensive line, offensive grad assistant for wide receivers. Then there's 5 people listed in strength and conditioning. Then you've got the executive director of football and recruiting. Then the associate director of football operations. Then you've got the general manager. Then you've got 3 directors of recruiting.
It's like working at Google.
When did this happen?
You go to a college football program. It's like working at Google.
I can't believe they have 4 GAs. They used to only have 2 GAs. They have 4 GAs now.
Yeah,
and 4 analysts.
Joe, when I was in the business, I was working in New York City many years ago. I first got out of UConn's MBA program. I was done playing. I was in tech, and we used to do business with Merrill Lynch, and they're all merged, different, all the big financial firms. We did a lot of tech for them, and it was so funny because I would talk to my boss, and I'd be like, "Listen, I'm meeting with the vice president of Merrill Lynch." They're like, "That's nothing." I'm like, "Oh." Because, and then they're like, "You got to be meeting with at least the senior vice president or executive vice president." I said, "How many vice presidents are there in these financial firms?" But everybody's a vice president. That's how you keep you in the mix.
And look, I'm not being critical of Coach Mora because everybody does this.
Everyone does it.
It's a criticism of college football in general.
Right. I just find it so funny because that's what it reminds me of. Like, everyone has this cool title.
Yeah, and if you looking at basketball, I know they only have 12 or 15 guys. They only have 4 coaches.
Now, that's a little. They have graduate. No, that's not right.
Okay.
They have directors of player development. Basketball
yes, they do.
It's like 8 or 9 people.
Yes. They have, they do. They have director of sports performance, director of player development, and assistant director of player. Okay. So you're right. They got. God damn it, Joe proves everything I say wrong.
Of course. Well, that's the best part about being on a podcast.
It is.
That's actually my.
He's my fact checker. It's like my fact checker.
Many of your facts are wrong.
Yeah.
Joe, I'm curious. Basketball facilities, UConn. I don't know if you know or not.
It's amazing.
Facilities versus like other schools within the Big East or around the. How are our, because we have our own like basketball facility and everything like that. Is that does everybody have that now in basketball, that kind of a thing, or
anybody who's any good? Anybody who's any good.
Okay.
Yeah, Syracuse just got theirs.
Right. And the Worth Center's as good as any.
Ours is wow.
Just like the Schenkman and Burton.
Yeah.
Are as good as any. But you need that. You can't just go into the gym, roll out the balls, and say, okay, let's practice. That doesn't work anymore.
Right. No, Dave, I saw it. It's unbelievable. It is absolutely unbelievable. It's
unbelievable because it's the same on both sides. You got one side for the men, all their own stuff, and one side for the women with all their own stuff.
Correct. And they also have their own food, their training tables there, their study hall stuff is there.
Right.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful building. Like I haven't seen other facilities for basketball, but
it's as good as anybody.
Yeah. I mean, I was blown away by it.
That's the beauty of basketball, even over football, is that there's much less players.
Yeah.
So you build a facility like that, that's all yours. There's really not that many people in the building.
Right.
Yeah. And
incredible.
And the player that I met was the 6'10" dude that we were talking about. He's the guy that I walked into, Samson. and I don't look up at many people, and that was like, wow, he was a giraffe. He was enormous, even for me.
You're right, because you're 6'5", right? So
yeah, yeah. He's lean, and I think that I don't think he'll get knocked around. I think he'll be okay. I mean, I think he's lean. He's strong. He was pumping some iron. He looks he probably is much stronger than he looks from what I can tell.
well, UConn was always even back when I remember, with Coach Jerry. I mean, it was the training that we did back then for
Jerry Martin.
Yeah, Jerry Martin. It was way ahead of other basketball programs because really back then, even they weren't really lifting that much back then. Like UConn, I remember they'd be in the weight room, and now it's not like how people lift now, for basketball, but they were lifting, and that was really not in the 90s. That was not a huge thing, the way that it is now, where they all, I mean, LeBron's like the poster child for a guy who's jacked as a basketball player.
In the weight room,
they're all built like that now, that the really, really good players are. So, but it's interesting because UConn was so far ahead of the curve from that standpoint, and working out with the basketball players, especially the women.
Yeah.
The crazy thing with the women, I always think I'm curious your thoughts on this. I don't know if it goes on, if women's basketball in general, they have a lot more of these kind of injuries, but I always feel like the women, and they've won 1 million championships, so they're really not that cursed, but they've had so many girls go down with ACLs over the year. I don't know if that's a thing with women's basketball in general because of the way that females are built differently than men. And
that's all it is.
Is that what it is?
The female knee is not constructed to deal with a lot of starts and stops and turns.
The strain and stress, right?
Yeah, and look, for a long time, UConn didn't have anybody hurt, so it's they went during their period of dominance. They rarely had anybody suffering it. Now Shea had a couple of ACLs.
She did, yes.
Lana Brasimova in 2001 tore her ACL, but they were a lot fewer and farther between back then. So UConn for a long time got away without having significant injuries. Now it's more than made up for over the last 5-6 years.
Right.
Yeah. No, I know. Maria had said that Coach Hootie, the strength and conditioning coach, has taken some heat for that, for whatever they're doing training wise.
Oh, really?
And yeah, that's what she said. And she said she doesn't believe it's founded. She says it's unfounded. It's not her, but I think it's more like what Joe said. It's the female body. It's the anatomy. It's not anything that has to do with how they're training. It's just injuries are going to happen when they play.
Right.
More so than the men.
Yeah, I'm sure they're also trying to figure out in strength and conditioning over the years, like how do they get around, like how does the training need to work and how do the practices need to work. But obviously, you can never stop someone from going up for a layup and changing direction before they do that, so that's never going to actually change.
Right, exactly.
So that eventually some of those things do happen, but it is an amazing thing because you don't, when you see that on the men's side in basketball, it's so I think it's you see ankles, you see those kind of things, but you unless something catastrophic happens, like where they land completely wrong or they get undercut, you rarely see that in men's basketball. It's definitely something that's much more of a female athlete thing, but I was curious about that because it's obviously so many girls play basketball. I also wonder if the way their bodies are, because girls are playing so early, so often, just like boys are. I mean, they're playing just as much now at the lower level. They're doing all the tournaments. They're doing everything
year round.
The boys are doing, and then all of a sudden they go through puberty and their bodies change, but they may not have adjusted how they develop their bodies. They're probably doing it the same way they did when they were 8 years old or 9 years old, when boys and girls were still built the same way, right? Before they hit puberty. So it's an interesting thing. Oh, the good thing is, one thing about UConn hoops, there's always a lot of positivity to talk about.
Yes. It's gonna be a fun season for sure. And Joe, Maria Conlon asked me to say hello to you.
Tell her I said hi.
I will.
Tell her I'm still pissed that she knocked my drink into my notes when they were warming up for the second half, I think, of the 03 semifinals.
You know what? I will be more than happy to let her know that.
Yeah.
More than happy to let her know that.
Right.
And I think she's going to do well at WestCon. I'm excited
I
for
do
her.
too.
I'm really excited that she did that. But I guess we made it. We made it through our first podcast, our first show together. And I only got proven wrong probably 10 times.
I don't think it was 10.
Maybe
it wasn't
8.
Far off, but maybe 8.
Maybe 8. Joe should be the fact checker on the presidential debates, I think.
No.
I think too.
He doesn't want that job.
He's got it. He got it all down.
He needs like encyclopedias like this on both sides, just to be like, what did this person say?
I'll pass on that.
Yeah. Well, we definitely are excited, and we appreciate you joining us, Joe. Obviously, the legend, the voice of the UConn Huskies. And for the record, Dave, I want it noted that I was the one that reached out to Joe and got him. So
that makes you happy.
I would like that noted and credited, please.
Credited.
Yes. I always remember whenever I bring a guest on or whatever, I always tell you I want it noted in the record. So, and the records make the note.
Be it.
Just so you know. So thank you for Joe and our coach, Dave Schuman. This has been Husky Hoops, our inaugural episode. I am Steve Cully, the best podcast host in the universe. Remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges and throw them back at life.